Imagine walking home one evening when a stray dog approaches you. At first it seems friendly, wagging its tail and sniffing around. Suddenly, without warning, it bites your hand and darts away into the shadows. You glance at the minor wound and shrug it off as nothing serious, a mere scratch. Weeks pass, and you start feeling unwell. Persistent headaches, a creeping sense of anxiety, difficulty swallowing even water. You visit the doctor and the diagnosis is devastating. You have rabies. At this stage, there's nothing medicine can do. The disease is almost always fatal once symptoms appear. Today we are going to delve into rabies, the deadliest disease known to humankind, boasting a mortality rate close to 100% once clinical symptoms manifest. We'll explore what rabies is, how it affects the body, its historical significance, its global impact, and most importantly, how it can be prevented and treated. Rabies is a viral infection that specifically targets the central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord. The causative agent is the rabies virus, a member of the Lyssavirus genus within the Rhabdoviridae family. This bullet-shaped virus is notorious for its ability to evade the immune system and its high lethality. Transmission of the rabies virus typically occurs through the saliva of an infected animal. The most common route is via bites, where the virus enters the body through broken skin. However, transmission can also occur if infected saliva comes into contact with mucous membranes, like the eyes or mouth, or fresh wounds. In rare cases, aerosol transmission has been documented in caves with high densities of infected bats. While domestic dogs are the primary source of human rabies deaths in many parts of the world, other animals can also carry and transmit the virus. Wild animals such as bats, raccoons, skunks, foxes, coyotes, and mongooses serve as significant reservoirs. Understanding these modes of transmission is crucial for implementing effective prevention and control strategies. Rabies is a zoonotic disease, meaning it can be transmitted from animals to humans. The virus affects all mammals, and once an animal is infected, it can spread the virus before showing any signs of illness. This silent transmission adds to the complexity of controlling the disease. Rabies is one of the oldest known infectious diseases, with a history that spans millennia. Ancient texts from Mesopotamia, dating back to around 2300 BCE, mention laws concerning the owner's responsibility if a dog showed signs of rabies and bit someone. The fear and mystery surrounding the disease have been documented in various cultures throughout history. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Aristotle observed the disease, noting that dogs suffer from the madness. The term rabies itself is derived from the Latin word rabere, meaning to rage, reflecting the aggressive behavior often exhibited by infected animals and humans. For centuries, rabies was associated with superstition and myth. In medieval Europe, it was sometimes linked to demonic possession due to the severe neurological symptoms it caused. Treatments were largely ineffective and often based on folklore, such as the application of madstones or other dubious remedies believed to draw out the disease. A significant turning point came in the 19th century with the work of Louis Pasteur, a French chemist and microbiologist. Pasteur developed the first successful rabies vaccine through his pioneering work on attenuated pathogens. In 1885, he famously treated a 9-year-old boy named Joseph Meister, who had been severely bitten by a rabid dog. Pasteur administered a series of injections containing progressively weakened forms of the virus. The boy survived, marking a monumental achievement in medical science and laying the groundwork for modern vaccines and immunology. Pasteur's work not only provided a solution to a deadly disease, but also introduced the concept of prophylactic vaccination, preventing disease before it occurs. His methods paved the way for the development of vaccines against other infectious diseases, revolutionizing public health. Once the rabies virus enters the body, it initiates a complex and insidious process. Initially, the virus replicates locally in muscle cells near the site of entry. This phase is the incubation period, which can vary widely from a few days to several years, but typically lasts between 1 and 3 months. Factors influencing the incubation period include the location of the bite. Closer to the brain usually means a shorter incubation, the severity of the wound, and the viral load introduced. After sufficient replication, the virus gains access to peripheral nerves by binding to nicotinic acetylcholine receptors at neuromuscular junctions. It then travels retrograde, against the normal direction of nerve impulse conduction along the axons toward the central nervous system. This neurotropic behavior allows the virus to evade the immune system, as neurons are considered immune-privileged sites. Upon reaching the spinal cord and brain, the virus causes inflammation and widespread neuronal dysfunction. This is the encephalitic phase. The virus also spreads centrifugally to other tissues, including the salivary glands, which facilitates further transmission through saliva. Clinical manifestations of rabies in humans are categorized into two forms: furious rabies and paralytic rabies. Furious rabies. This is the more common presentation, accounting for about 80% of cases. Symptoms begin with nonspecific signs like fever, headache, and malaise. As the disease progresses, neurological symptoms emerge, including hyperactivity, excitability, hallucinations, and aggressive behavior. A hallmark symptom is hydrophobia, or fear of water, which arises from spasms of the throat muscles when trying to swallow liquids. Even the mere sight or sound of water can trigger painful spasms. Patients may also exhibit aerophobia, a fear of drafts or fresh air, due to heightened sensory sensitivity. Paralytic rabies, also known as dumb rabies, this form accounts for the remaining 20% of cases. It is characterized by muscle weakness and paralysis, starting at the site of the bite or scratch, and gradually spreading to other parts of the body. There is a loss of sensation and reflexes, leading to coma and eventually death. Paralytic rabies can be more challenging to diagnose because the dramatic symptoms of furious rabies are absent, leading to misdiagnosis and underreporting. Regardless of the form, once clinical symptoms appear, rabies is almost invariably fatal. Death typically occurs within days due to cardiac arrhythmias, respiratory failure, or widespread organ dysfunction resulting from severe brain involvement. The pathological hallmark of rabies infection is the presence of Negri bodies, which are eosinophilic inclusions found in the cytoplasm of infected neurons. These inclusions are used in laboratory diagnosis to confirm rabies infection post-mortem. Rabies remains a significant public health issue worldwide. It's estimated to cause around 59,000 human deaths annually, although this figure might be underestimated due to poor surveillance and reporting systems in many countries. Over 95% of human rabies deaths occur in Asia and Africa, regions where dog-mediated transmission is prevalent and access to preventive measures is limited. The high mortality rate is particularly tragic because rabies is preventable through vaccination and prompt medical intervention after exposure. The disease disproportionately affects rural and impoverished communities where healthcare resources are scarce and awareness is low. Children under 15 years old are at a higher risk, comprising up to 40% of those bitten by suspect rabid animals. This vulnerability is due to several factors. Children are more likely to interact with animals, may not report bites or scratches promptly, and are physically smaller, which means bites are more likely to be severe or closer to the head and neck, areas associated with shorter incubation periods. The economic burden of rabies is also significant. Costs include expenditures on post-exposure prophylaxis, estimated to be around $1.7 billion annually, mostly borne by Asian countries. Additionally, there are indirect costs such as loss of income, expenses for livestock deaths, impacts on tourism, and the psychological toll on affected families and communities. The persistence of rabies highlights stark inequalities in global health. In developed countries, human rabies cases are rare thanks to effective animal control programs, widespread vaccination of pets, and readily available medical care. In contrast, developing countries face challenges such as inadequate healthcare infrastructure, lack of access to vaccines, and limited public health education. Preventing rabies hinges on two primary strategies: controlling the disease in animal populations and providing prompt and appropriate medical care to humans after potential exposure. Animal control measures. Vaccination of pets. Regular vaccination of dogs and cats is a cornerstone of rabies prevention. Vaccination reduces the reservoir of the virus in domestic animals, thereby lowering the risk of transmission to humans. Many countries have laws mandating rabies vaccination for pets. Wildlife management. In areas where wildlife contributes significantly to rabies transmission, strategies such as oral rabies vaccination programs are implemented. Baits containing rabies vaccines are distributed in the wild to immunize animals like raccoons, foxes, and coyotes. Stray animal control. Managing stray and feral animal populations through humane capture, spaying, neutering, and vaccination programs helps reduce the number of unvaccinated animals that could transmit rabies. Public education. Educating communities about avoiding contact with wild or stray animals and reporting suspicious behavior in animals contributes to early detection and control efforts. Human medical care, immediate wound care, prompt and thorough cleaning of all bite wounds and scratches with soap and water for at least 15 minutes can significantly reduce the risk of rabies transmission. Applying antiseptics like iodine or alcohol further decreases the viral load at the entry site. Post-exposure prophylaxis. PEP is critical and highly effective in preventing rabies if administered promptly after exposure. It consists of rabies vaccine, a series of injections given on days 0, 3, 7, and 14, and sometimes day 28 for immunocompromised individuals. The vaccine stimulates the body's immune response to produce antibodies against the virus. Rabies immunoglobulin administered once at the beginning of PEP, RIG provides immediate passive immunity by supplying ready-made antibodies. It is particularly important for individuals who have not been previously vaccinated. RIG is infiltrated around the wound site and any remaining volume is administered intramuscularly. Avoiding delay. Time is of the essence in rabies exposure. Delays in seeking medical care can be fatal, as PEP is only effective if administered before the onset of symptoms. Pre-exposure prophylaxis. For individuals at high risk of rabies exposure, such as veterinarians, animal handlers, laboratory workers, and travelers to high-risk areas, pre-exposure vaccination is recommended. PrEP involves a series of rabies vaccinations that prime the immune system. In the event of an exposure, individuals who have received PrEP require fewer PEP doses and may not need RIG. Education and awareness. Public health campaigns play a vital role in rabies prevention. Educating people about the risks of rabies, safe animal handling practices, and the importance of seeking immediate medical attention after potential exposure can significantly reduce the incidence of the disease. Legal measures. Some countries have implemented laws requiring the reporting of animal bites and mandatory quarantine of animals suspected of having rabies. These regulations help in monitoring and controlling the spread of the virus. Despite the availability of effective vaccines and treatments, several challenges impede the eradication of rabies. Resource limitations in many developing countries mean vaccines and immunoglobulins are either not readily available or are prohibitively expensive. This scarcity leads to delayed or incomplete PEP, increasing the risk of fatal outcomes. Healthcare access is another major hurdle. Remote and rural populations often lack access to medical facilities equipped to administer PEP. Geographic isolation and inadequate transportation can result in critical delays. Wildlife reservoirs also pose a significant challenge. Rabies persists in wild animal populations, serving as a continuous source of infection. Managing rabies in wildlife is complex due to ecological, logistical, and financial constraints. Cultural barriers, such as misconceptions and traditional beliefs about rabies and its transmission, can hinder prevention efforts. In some cultures, animal bites may be treated with traditional remedies instead of seeking medical care. Lack of awareness is another issue. Low levels of public awareness about the seriousness of rabies and the importance of immediate action contribute to higher mortality rates. Educational campaigns are essential but require sustained effort and resources. Inadequate surveillance also hampers eradication efforts. Many countries lack robust surveillance systems to monitor rabies cases in humans and animals. Underreporting leads to an underestimation of the disease's impact, resulting in insufficient allocation of resources for control measures. Vaccine hesitancy, driven by fear of side effects, mistrust in medical institutions, and misinformation, can lead to reluctance in accepting vaccination for pets or receiving PEP after exposure. Finally, climate change and urbanization introduce new challenges. Changes in climate and human encroachment into wildlife habitats can alter the dynamics of rabies transmission, making control efforts even more complicated. Rabies is a devastating and nearly always fatal disease that continues to claim thousands of lives each year, despite being entirely preventable. Its persistence is a stark reminder of the inequalities in global health and the challenges that remain in combating zoonotic diseases. However, there is hope. Through concerted efforts to vaccinate animals, educate the public, and improve access to medical care, we can significantly reduce the incidence of rabies. Each of us can contribute to this goal by ensuring our pets are vaccinated, avoiding contact with wild or stray animals, and spreading awareness about the importance of prompt medical attention after potential exposure. Remember, once symptoms appear, rabies is almost always fatal, but with knowledge and prompt action it doesn't have to be. By working together, we can move toward making rabies a disease of the past. Thank you for your attention.